Good morning, friends.
Good morning.
Welcome to
So,
another Field Trip Friday. My name's
so
Steve.
excited to be here. And I'm Tanika.
Yeah.
So, today we are going to be visiting the Duke Lemur Center. And we have a really special guest host for this episode. We have Peregrine from the Museum of Life and Science. Thank you so much for guest hosting this episode. We'd also like to go ahead and thank Matt and Carrie and Megan for hosting us during this episode at the Duke Lemur Center. Good morning, everyone. Every Friday, we also host different DPS classrooms. Maybe one day we'll see you and I'll be able to ask us questions during the live Q&A. So today we have a very special class. We have Miss Lindsay's fifth grade class from Forest View Elementary School. And we are really excited because this is Forest View's first time being with us for Field Trip Friday. So thank you so much, Miss Lindsay's fifth grade class, for being with us today. Good morning to all of you.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. I would like to remind all the students that are here with us that you can chat questions in the chat, and we'll get a chance to either answer them in the chat, or we'll talk about them in our live Q&A following the video. So as you're watching, if you're curious about something, type it in the chat and we'll talk about it later. So with that, I am super excited to share with you our visit to the Duke Lemur Center, and I'll get this video rolling. Hey everyone, welcome to another Field Trip Friday. My name's Steve.
And I'm Peregrine.
Where are we going today, Peregrine?
Oh, we are going to the Duke Lemur Center.
Absolutely. If it wasn't obvious, we're here standing at the Duke Lemur Center. We're also going to visit a part of the Duke Lemur Center called the Division of Fossil Primates. And so we'll get to connect both the history and the current status of lemurs and other primates in the world.
Sounds great. Let's go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Hey friends, my name's Peregrine. I do programs online and in person for the lab, and I'm really excited to be a guest host for this episode of Field Trip Fridays because my background is in a branch of science called evolutionary anthropology. That's the study of how we, humans, became how we are. So there's one branch of it that looks at the fossil history of ancient humans and ancient human ancestors and relatives. There's another branch that involves looking for clues in modern populations of humans and in other groups of primates, which is the family to which humans belong, along with other apes and monkeys and prosimians, including lemurs. Let's go check it out.
So, Matt, can you tell us who you are and where we are and what happens here?
Sure. So my name is Matt Bortz, and I'm the curator of fossils at the Duke Lemur Center. And so we are standing at what is called the Division of Fossil Primates at the Duke Lemur Center. And what we are is a fossil collection that is all related to basically the story of primates. Primates are the group of animals that lemurs belong to, and it's also the group of animals that we belong to as humans. And so it's a really important story that we want to tell, to figure out where did this group of animals come from. And so the Lemur Center was started as a place that studied just lemurs and what the behavior of those animals can tell us about, like, just how they behave, and just like about those animals themselves. There was a paleontologist who then became part of the Lemur Center, and that paleontologist is someone who studies fossils and kind of the story of where animals come from. He wanted to use lemurs, which have a lot of features that are shared with some of the earliest primates we find in the fossil record, to understand the biology of these very ancient creatures. And so he wanted to combine the living animals of the Lemur Center with the fossil record of primates that he was discovering as a paleontologist. So started this collection to kind of help the modern record, to like modern animals, tell us about extinct animals. And that's really a big part of what it means to be a paleontologist. I'm a paleontologist, so there are some paleontologists that study dinosaurs, and some paleontologists study trilobites, and some that study sharks. I'm someone who studies mammals. I study primates, I also study meat-eating mammals, and kind of everything that happened after the extinction of the dinosaurs 66 million years ago. And so that story is something that primates were along for that entire ride. And as a paleontologist, I am as interested in studying modern animals as I am extinct animals, because the modern animals tell us about kind of putting the flesh on the bones of these creatures that we find. And so here we have the bones of lots of different creatures that have been discovered all over the world, and I have the privilege of being part of collaborative teams that go out and look for these specimens, bring them back here to the Division of Fossil Primates, where we have a research collection that researchers from around the world can come, and just like someone can check out a library book, they can check out a fossil that they come and visit on our shelves here. And just like modern libraries aren't just something you can do by going to a library, we also have a digital version of all of this, where you can go look up specimens online. And there are researchers who can study the information that we publish about all of these animals, and we also have digital models of a lot of these fossils that are available online. So researchers could study the origins of primates from all over the world that are coming from this collection right here in Europe.
So we're someplace different. Hi there.
Hello, I'm Carrie Whitman, and I am the fossil preparator here at the fossil collection at the Duke Lemur Center. But I also wear a lot of other hats. So first of all, a fossil preparator is somebody who gets the fossils out of the rocks. The rocks are big chunks. Usually when we go to collect fossils from the field, we'll pick up the fossils in the rock that's around them to keep them safe, to bring them back to a place where they're going to be studied. But somebody has to get all of the rock around the fossil away and not break the fossil, and glue pieces back together if needed. But I also, part of the reason that I'm the fossil preparator here specifically is because I have an interest in Madagascar. I also did a master's of environmental studies where I went to Madagascar. I've been there for like a cumulative total of 1.5 years staying there, and talking with rice farmers in Madagascar about their lives and about how they balance conservation of the forests with land use to grow rice to feed their families. So being a fossil preparator and being somebody who does research in Madagascar come together really nicely for me to be the fossil preparator at the Duke Lemur Center.
So in your fossil preparation as a fossil preparator, you have to, as you mentioned, separate those bones from the rock, which
Yeah.
I guess they're all rock at this point, right? It's just different parts of the rock, and you have to kind of separate that.
Yeah.
Can you show us a little bit about how you do that?
Sure, I can show you guys, and we'll go back into my prep lab.
Cool.
So this is a skull of Smilodectes, which is one of the early primates that we find in Wyoming that is very similar to what some lemurs look like today. And it was found teeth side up. So when the rain washes a lot of sediment down the mountainside in Wyoming, it uncovers the fossils in the rock below, but sometimes the mud can sort of mess up the fossils a little bit, so we have lots of pieces that I needed to put back together. But also, this whole skull, except for the surface here, and this jaw that was laying on the side, it was all in rock like this. It's really hard. And all of these scratch marks are where I had to use my tiny little jackhammer to blow away parts of the rock to free the fossil. So it took a very long time to delicately blow rock away from all of these parts of this fossil without breaking it more. And that is a lot of what I do in my job as a preparator, is I free rocks from the fossil and then I can put them back together. So this jaw still has a connection point, and so we can see the full skull and the full jaw, which is really cool and like pretty rare in paleontology to find a skull that's really nice like this.
So believe it or not, we're still right here in North Carolina. We're in the middle of Durham. So we're at the Duke Lemur Center, and my name is Megan McGrath, and I'm the Education Programs Manager here. And the most fun part of that job means I get to introduce people to the lemurs, like the ones behind us right now. So we are actually in one of our natural habitat enclosures. So we're surrounded by forest. We're in over 3 acres of forest right now, but we actually have 9 different forested habitats spread across the 100 acres of the Duke Lemur Center. And right behind us, we have one of my favorite groups right now this year. So right here, we have Lupicina, or Loopy, as she's affectionately known. That's Mom. And then right over here, we have her son Felix, who is actually one of our first infants born this year, and he is approaching the 6-month mark, if I'm not mistaken. So he's already pretty big and pretty agile, and I know we're going to get some great footage of him today, and he's doing really great with leaping and hopping through the trees and kind of learning how to be a grown-up shafak out here in the forest.
Yeah, I saw him do this really cool maneuver where he jumped from a tree and then onto his mom's back, and then she continued jumping with him on her back. It was just like so amazing. I was like, can you imagine like jumping and or holding on? Like both of those things were just amazing.
That's one of the most fascinating things about most of the lemurs, and actually we have a great compare and contrast right here. The species we have in this forest, we have cockerel shafak behind us, and then we also have red ruff lemurs that we're going to meet a little bit too. And they really do a great job of showing the wide diversity of lemurs. So with Felix, we're going to see him hopping onto Mom, grabbing onto her back, using that really strong grip with his hands and feet to cling while she's moving around. He is getting big enough to hop on and off. And he's probably getting to the point where Loopy's going to start kicking him off soon, basically saying like, all right, you're big enough, like you can do this on your own, especially as it gets hot out. That's understandable for Mom to do that.
Right.
Hi there, Brittany. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do here at the Lemur Center?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a primary caretaker out here, I'm responsible for feeding these guys, cleaning up after these guys, making sure they're healthy, happy, and enriched every day. So that means they're mentally stimulated. As well as we have a training program just to help us do certain behaviors with them voluntarily. So, and it's also enriching for them to be able to be trained.
Yeah, this is so cool. And so these are red ruff lemurs, right?
Yeah, so this is one of our groups of red ruff lemurs. We have 2 sisters right here, May and Judith, and then Afu is the male. He was introduced, I think last fall, and they are part of a breeding program. So Afu, the male, will breed one of the 2 females during breeding season, which will be like end of December, January, February, and of course that's according to the species survival plan. So they were matched basically due to best genetics. So hopefully they'll be successful, and then next year this time we will have more babies like Felix. But for
Absolutely, that's so cool. Yeah, we've talked a little bit on the show about species survival plans before with red wolves, and it's so cool to be able to talk about it again in the context of another species. I mean, I say so cool, but it's really kind of a hard situation, right? Because we're using these plans to try and give some biological diversity that doesn't exist in the wild or is hard to maintain currently in the wild. So yeah, that's really cool, and that's part of why the center exists at all, right? Is to be a part of that kind of biological or genetic diversity, I guess, outside of the wild.
kind of a genetic safety net, if you will. But,
Right, yeah, that was a cool term that Matt had used earlier. Yeah, genetic safety net. Yeah, that's cool.
This has been so incredible. I'm wondering if you might tell us something that we should know about the Duke Lemur Center.
Absolutely. Of course, I can pull from a million different things, but I think the main thing I want people to understand is just the vast amount of work that goes into the Duke Lemur Center and the supporting of our mission. So zoos are wonderful places, museums are wonderful places, but typically they focus in a specific area, or maybe they branch into another area a little bit. So a zoo might also support some research projects, and lots of zoos and museums support conservation efforts in the wild. The unique thing about the Duke Lemur Center is that all under one umbrella, based here in North Carolina, we have a non-invasive research program. We've been here for over 55 years, so that means we're not harming any of the lemurs. Nothing gets more invasive than a routine vet exam for these guys with research. And often research takes the form of something really simple, like they do what they want to do in the forest, and we just watch and write it down on a clipboard. Lots of observational research. In addition to that, we also have a conservation program that we've been doing in Madagascar on the ground for over 35 years. We have Malagasy employees who are helping us with our mission, and we're doing lots of community-based conservation where lemurs are from to help impact the situation in Madagascar. And then we also have our educational program, which is the most recent addition, just in the last 15 years or so. And that, of course, included on-site tours for a number of years. And then when we had to shut down due to the pandemic, we then added on a whole slew of virtual programs, as you're very familiar with. We all got very good at video editing very quick. And so having all of that under one hub is a dream for an educator, because I don't have to talk about it in an abstract way or in a way that someone else is doing great work that we're supporting. I can talk about how my coworker who works in the next office is doing it. And if I want to learn about a research project about lemurs, I can walk just across the way and talk to a researcher who's currently studying them and currently finding out results. So it's really exciting to know that all of that is happening all right here at the Duke Lemur Center.
That is incredible.
So Megan, this has been such an incredible trip. Thank you for having us here at the Duke Lemur Center. How do people learn more and connect with y'all? And can they visit, or what's going on?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for visiting. We're so excited to show you everything we're doing here. People can absolutely visit us from near and far. So we are open for tours this summer. Finally, we're so excited to have people out. I will note that you do have to make a reservation online in order to visit, since we are an active, non-invasive research facility, so it's not quite like visiting a museum or a zoo, but we'd love to have people out. We also are now offering our entire virtual tour, which is 75 minutes worth of videos all about the lemurs and the work we do here, absolutely free on our website for anyone, anywhere in the world. And we've got lots of other great virtual programs, including a virtual summer camp with people signed up from all over North America. So it's a really great time to get involved at the Lemur Center, whether you live here or you're a little further away.
That's so awesome. Thank you again so much for having us. This has been wonderful. How about you, Peregrine?
It has been amazing. This is a dream come true for me. So thank you so much for having us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for caring about lemurs.
Absolutely. We will see you in the live Q&A, where we'll get to ask cool questions about the Duke Lemur Center, lemurs, and primate history and paleontology, anything you'd like. Keep those questions ready. We'll see you in the live Q&A. Thanks for joining us. That was awesome. That was such a fun visit. I cannot express how amazing. I mean, as Peregrine mentioned at the end of that video, it was amazing. It was a dream come true. I think sometimes it's easy, having been in Durham for a long time, to kind of take for granted that the Duke Lemur Center exists, but the reality that the Duke Lemur Center exists in Durham is just, it's wild. And so there were a lot of really cool questions in the chat, and I'd love to get to some of those. Miss Lindsay, would you like to call out some of the cool questions that your students had?
Yes, sure. One of the first questions that one of my students had was, she asked a question when they was talking about the fossils, and she wanted to know, were the animals, did you guys find animal fossils before the primate fossils, which was found first?
So the animal fossils that we find of lemurs is a question how old, like which one is older, the animals from like other primates. So one of the kind of amazing things about the fossil record is that lots of different groups of animals all have a fossil record, and all of our stories are kind of following along with each other. And so you can kind of figure out everyone's story going back through time, and eventually those stories link up. The story of lemurs and the story of humans separate. Our kind of family tree goes off in separate directions, starting somewhere between like 60 and 55 million years ago. So the dinosaurs, non-avian dinosaurs, went extinct 66 million years ago. So not that long after dinosaurs go extinct, the lemur story and the human story kind of separate from each other. And the human part of that story includes animals like apes and animals like monkeys, and they also have a fossil record that we find along the way. And they're found alongside the fossils of lemurs, or like lemur relatives. And so all of us are kind of traveling through time kind of next to each other, and lemurs and human relatives are kind of mixing and mingling on different continents. And eventually we all find our way to Africa. And the relatives of lemurs go from mainland Africa to Madagascar. The human relatives kind of stay in Africa. And that's where ultimately our species, Homo sapiens, first pops up in the fossil record about 300,000 years ago. And so that is about how far we can go back with just the species we belong to. There are over 100 species of lemurs in Madagascar, and we don't actually know exactly when and where different individual species of lemurs popped up, because the fossil record of Madagascar gets really fuzzy kind of when those groups of animals would have been separating. So it's a fossil mystery. We haven't actually found all of the pieces of all of these stories yet, which is why it's really exciting to be a paleontologist. And anyone who's interested in paleontology know that there's a lot of really fascinating stories we haven't figured out yet. So there's plenty of opportunities for discovery still to happen.
Yeah, that is incredible. It was so fascinating talking with you about the various lineages and that kind of tapestry of life that we see in the evolution of various species over time. I think that's so cool that in that tapestry there's kind of like holes, and paleontologists are trying to solve those mysteries. They're kind of like, in some cases, fully unsolved, and then in some cases we have kind of hypotheses about what those solutions might be, those connections between different parts of the tapestry. So that was an awesome question.
I love that you're asking these questions, the same questions that scientists are asking and looking for the answers for, the same ones that you're asking. That's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Y'all are, I mean, that's what's so cool about connecting with a community of scientists, right? Is that you really start to realize that these are common questions. And just because you're in elementary school doesn't mean you're not asking questions that other humans who are trained scientists, professionals with PhDs, like often the question is still there. It's cool that you have that. Agreed. Miss Lindsay, do you have more? I know your students had lots of other cool questions. Let's call some other ones out.
Sure. Another question that they had was, in the Lemur Center, how many lemurs are in the center and how many different species of lemurs are in the center?
Sure, I'll take this one. So we have over 200 lemurs living at the Duke Lemur Center, and we actually have one non-lemur species. They're called bush babies. They're a very close relative, though. They're in that early primate family. And that's 14 different species of lemur that make up the over 200 lemurs. So that's actually the most different kinds of lemurs outside of Madagascar you're going to find in the world. We also had a few questions about which exact types of lemurs we have, and that's a very long list. So I'll post a link in the chat, and anybody else can look on that website link that we posted earlier. We've got a great list of all our species and information about them.
Super cool. Yeah. Yeah. Let's. What was another? There were some other really cool questions too.
Another question that one of my students had was that if you take a visit to the Lemur Center, are the lemurs roaming freely about in the Lemur Center, or are they caged? And if they are roaming freely about, are they trained to interact with humans, and how does that work?
That's a fantastic question. So the unique thing about the Lemur Center is where we went when they came out for their field trip is called a natural habitat enclosure. So we have, as I mentioned, 9 different habitats like that, where we have up to 3 or even 4 different types of lemurs all roaming around together in there in small groups. And as you saw in the video, we don't have any barriers or fences between us and them, but that's only part of our lemur population. That's about 1/3 of our lemurs. Our other lemurs do live inside their own designated habitats or rooms. They have outdoor space, they have indoor space. It's important to know that lemurs are not adapted to the cold North Carolina winters, so everybody has to have nice warm places to go when it's cold outside, and also when hurricanes come through and things like that. Of course, in Madagascar, if a cyclone comes through, nobody's there to help them, but luckily we can help these guys out by keeping them in a nice, safe indoor space. So all of the lemurs are trained to some degree. It's all based on what the lemurs would like to do and how good of a bribe we have for them. So we do something called positive reinforcement training, which just means that we ask the lemurs to do something through giving them a hand signal. And then if the lemur does it, they get a treat. If they don't do it, nothing happens. Nothing bad happens. They don't get their treat. They still get all the food they were supposed to get that day. We just don't give them a treat right in that moment. And you'd be amazed the kinds of things you can do with that training. We have some lemurs who they'll just kind of come over to a spot when we ask them to, or they might go into a carrier if we ask them to, so they can go to a vet safely or something like that. We have other lemurs who are so good with training that they'll actually hang upside down from a branch, snack on their treat, and let us do an ultrasound. So put up a little tool so we can see inside their belly and see if they're pregnant with a baby. But not all lemurs will do that. So it's always important to remember that all the animals have a choice, whether or not they want to train and get the treat, or whether or not they want to say, nah, not today, I'll just hang out.
That's really cool. So I think I saw a couple questions about about kind of the people of Madagascar too. I was wondering if Carrie, would you like to say anything about kind of what's going on with like human beings and the connection to primates and lemurs and Madagascar's environment?
Sure. Yeah, lemurs are really well known there. Obviously, everybody sees lemurs in their daily life if they live in the countryside or by the forest. And so it's sort of a pride thing in Madagascar that they have all of these cool lemurs that don't live anywhere else. But it's also important to balance conservation of lemurs with like the space and the materials that the people need. And a lot of people there are farmers, so they need some space and resources to be able to farm food for themselves and their families. And I mentioned in the chat, but tomorrow is the Madagascar's Independence Day. And it's called 26, which is the French word for 26. But they call it a fete. It's a big party. So tomorrow everybody's going to have a big parade and a big party. And that's always a lot of fun.
That's cool.
And just as a bonus, the language that they speak there is Malagasy, and that is also what they call themselves as a people. And there's lots of different dialects of Malagasy depending on where you live on the island. It's a really big island. If you put Madagascar on the map of the US, it would be the entire East Coast, basically. So it's bigger than it looks when you look at it on a map.
Thank you for that. It's hard to get a complete picture, and it wouldn't be complete without the Malagasy people. Thank you so much, Carrie.
Yeah, thank you. There were a bunch of other cool questions too. Were there some that you noticed, Miss Lindsay?
Yes, one of them was questions that they had about the babies that are born in the Lemur Center and how are they taken care of, and then when are they released to be out with the other adult primates, and how old do they have to be?
That's a fantastic question. So the babies that are born here at the Lemur Center, as you heard Brittany talk about, are all part of a plan. So we have the healthiest babies possible because we know that mom and dad are a really good match for each other. And we do have lots of babies here. We usually have about 10 to 20 every single year. And so if you followed us on social media, you might have seen some of those babies announced recently. But in addition to being very cute, babies are a lot of work, both for mom and dad, mostly mom, and also for the people working here at the Lemur Center. So when babies are born, we let mom do all of the work if it's at all possible, because that's the healthiest thing for mom and baby, and it's really good for mom and baby to have bonding time. But we do what are called weight checks on most of our babies, where we come in every few days and we just make sure that baby's growing nice and big. And of course, we've been here for over 50 years, so we know exactly how big baby is supposed to be getting because we have so many years of previous babies and how big they've gotten, how quickly. So we know, okay, this baby's gaining weight really, really good, or ooh, this baby is not quite gaining as much weight as they should. You'd be surprised how much focus we put on weight with babies. That's one of our main ways we can tell if they feel good, because they can't talk to us like we can talk to each other and say, hey, my stomach hurts today, or hey, I have a headache today. So we have to look for other clues to figure out if they're feeling okay and if everything's okay. And then as the babies grow up and get bigger, they learn how to be a lemur from mom and their siblings and dad. So you saw Felix in the video was hopping on and off of mom. You might have also noticed that Felix was trying to reach into the bowl and mom was kind of pushing him out of the way a little bit. So Felix is at a really crucial stage of lemur babyhood, which is he's getting a little too old to snack out of mom's bowl freely anymore. He's starting to learn a very important thing in lemur society, and that's that girls are in charge. So while he was a baby, mom let him get away with a whole bunch of stuff. But now that he's getting older, he needs to learn that really important life lesson that when he gets a girlfriend, she's going to be the one who's in charge. She's going to be the one who gets all the good food. And that sounds kind of mean to us, right? Why can't we all share? But in lemurs, the girls are the ones having the babies. They're the ones that are growing the babies in their belly. They need lots of food. They need to make sure they're the safest out of everybody. And so it makes a lot of sense. If you're the mama and you've got to have the babies and do all that work, well, then you're going to get access to the best food of the bunch too. So babies have to learn all these complex things, which is why primates like lemurs and like humans spend so much time with our parents. We have a whole lot to learn when we're born. We don't have as many instincts that we're born with as other animals.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. I really hate that I missed this field trip.
Like, we'll just have you out for your own trip. It's okay.
Oh, perfect. I mean, Peregrine, you got the best. You got the best one. I'm not even gonna front. But I'm really excited, and you all did a great job of asking beautiful curiosities. I mean, your questions are great, and it shows just how the level of questioning doesn't change regardless of how many degrees you have. We all have some of the same questions. And so thank you so much, students, for asking your beautiful questions and just for remaining curious, because that's the main part of growing older and, you know, just staying in school. So thank you so much. So we also want to thank Matt and Carrie and Megan and everyone once again over at the Duke Lemur Center. Make sure you guys be ready to come see me. Like, I'm gonna come because I want to be all inside of the enclosures too. Thank you once again, Peregrine. You're the best. And once again, we want to also thank Durham Public Schools. And of course, we want to thank Forest View for being with us today. Thank you so much, Miss Lindsay. You all have been awesome today.
Yeah, thank you so much for being with us, students. Your curiosity is definitely what drives this project, and a large part of what drives our scientific community forward. This is a rich community that you live in, full of science and scientists, and you're a part of that. So keep those minds curious, keep your eyes open, keep your ears listening, and I look forward to hearing your questions the next time. I want to give you a preview of where we're going next week. But first, I also want to just say thank you, Duke Lemur Center. Thank you, Carrie, Matt, Megan. Thank you, Peregrine, for joining me on this trip. It was so fun. And I'm so sorry you didn't get to go hang out with those lemurs, but you'll get to go someday.
Next one is you and me, Tamika.
Exactly. So next week, we are going to be visiting the Glenstone Nature Preserve, which is one of the protected lands through the Ellerby Creek Watershed Association, and they call themselves EQUA. So we'll be joining EQUA to learn about their Glenstone Nature Preserve. We'll see how they protect the precious Ellerby Creek and its tributaries, which ultimately flow into Falls Lake, which is the drinking water supply for Raleigh. So protecting our environment not only protects the water sources of our communities, but it also protects vital habitat for many species of plants, animals, fungi, microorganisms, and this all, of course, includes human beings, but obviously not just human beings. As I think we saw in the chat, you know, humans are animals too, and we're a part of a web of life, and EQUA is working to protect those ecosystems right here in Durham. And I look forward to visiting the Glenstone Nature Preserve with y'all next week. And so we'll see you there. Thanks everyone for being with us today, and we'll see you on the next Field Trip Fridays.